Today was such a big day. It was winter project day. We always save up all of our projects for winter so that we can do it when it's nice and cool outside. We had to replace these trellises. So today I'm going to share with you how I went about upgrading my trellises to cattle panels, how we got them home, because I know that that's a challenge, and how we put them together so that you can see whether this is something maybe you want to do or maybe you want to skip it and go with my original design. Welcome back, friends. For those who are new here, I'm Katrina with Homegrown Florida, and I have been attempting to grow vertical gardens for quite a while now. I'm actually really into it. In a video I did a little while ago, I talked about how it was something that I wasn't interested in doing at first because it seemed like too much work. And then I realized how productive the plants could be. And so I totally changed my tune and I really got into trellising and growing my plants vertically. But with growing vertically comes the challenge of actually building and installing these vertical trellises. I had to do quite a bit of research before we headed up to Rural King. You can also get these at Tractor Supply, but I had to do some research of what kind of metal I could replace my trellises with because my main issue with my trellis was that it was so flexible. And so cattle panel was what everyone was saying. So my husband and I had made a trip up to Tractor Supply to kind of check them out. And while we were there, we were like, yes, this is exactly the kind of heavy duty metal that we need. But then it came to the, how do we get this thing home? We do have a truck, which is helpful, but these panels are 4 feet wide by 16 feet long, and a bed of our truck is only 5.5 feet. So it took us having to kind of Google out in the parking lot, like, how do you do this? And there was a really great video on YouTube that showed a gentleman. I'll put it down in the description here, but he shows how you like fold it, and you saw that earlier. We kind of like wrapped it into a loop and then you ratchet strap it or bungee cord it into the back of your truck. And that worked out really well. We could get 2 panels home for that. I probably wouldn't have done more than the 2, so you might have to take more trips if you want to do more panels. The next step was what you just saw us doing there, which is removing the old arch trellis. This was made from, I believe it was chicken wire or like goat fencing. I can't remember, but it came in like a spool and it did its job, guys. It really did do its job. I've had it up for years, but I have had to like adjust it because the arch has stopped being curved, which, I mean, if you're not into aesthetics, it's no big deal. But for me, I kind of wanted it to be pretty, and I also wanted it to be higher so that I can grow even more, especially the long vegetables. I have a plan on growing loofah this summer, and loofah needs quite a bit of space, so I wanted to make sure I had a very high arch trellis for it to grow on. But it also is a very heavy plant, so this arch trellis needed to be quite heavy duty. And cattle panels really do the job when it comes to heavy duty. You can see us here trying to carry it. Let me just clarify that. Not us. My husband ended up like strong manning this thing and carrying the whole thing because it was so heavy. This is not a project I would have been able to do alone just from the sheer weight of the panels. They are kind of hefty. The other thing was the panels are 4 feet wide and my beds are supposed to be 4 feet wide. So I don't know why they don't fit, but they were off by just like an inch or two. It's probably that the beds have concaved a little bit or something. So we had to get out the grinder. My husband said this is a grinder with a metal like cutting wheel on it. And so it just slices through the wire here at the edge so that there's no sharp edges or anything when we're done. It took him, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. He's really handy. So it's like these things are no big deal for him. But I know that that might be a barrier of entry, not only getting it home, but then carrying it if you don't have, a partner to help with that, and then also grinding off or cutting the metal can be a little bit of a challenge if these things are not things that you use on a regular basis. So I just wanted to show you how he did it and how we did it so that way, maybe you can look in your life and see like what kind of tools you have available that might be able to do this, like bolt cutters, or if you have a neighbor or a friend or a couple of, young guys college friends of your son or something like that, that you can schedule a weekend of pizza by the pool and enlist their help to do that as well. Maybe another option about getting it home is going to be like renting a flatbed trailer if you have a vehicle that has a tow option, or renting a truck, because those are things that you can do, and they are, an additional price. I think the flatbeds were like $20, and you can rent a truck from like U-Haul for some amount of money there. I'm not sure. I haven't done that in years. But those are all options if you really, really want to do the cattle panels. Once you get past the fact that it's a little bit difficult to get home, it's a little bit heavy to carry, and the cutting of it, the rest of it was super simple. The T-posts that we had in place for the animal fencing that we used in the past, that we just cut the old zip ties off and we put new zip ties on. I would recommend getting a heavier duty zip tie when it comes to using these. There's also these metal, like wire, I don't know what they're called. They're like metal loops that you can use for cattle panels, specifically designed for cattle panels. But I mean, zip ties seem to be working just fine. We'll kind of gauge it over the next year or so and see if they start popping off. And if they do, maybe we'll switch over to the metal. But for right now, zip ties worked just perfectly. It went in really, really easy. You see here, my husband is the foreman at this job, and I like to say that I'm just his beautiful assistant. I just kind of hold things in place and hand him zip ties and tools. He's really like the kind of person that works independently, so I just try to stay out of his way on these projects. But I'm incredibly grateful that I have him to be able to do these projects. He's not been on video much, so this was one where I was like, hey, you're gonna need to be on video because you're doing most of this project, and I really, really want to show everyone, the transition of what it's like moving or upgrading your trellises. And he was like, yeah, that's fine. We'll do it just this once. So this may be the first and last video you ever see my husband in. We call him the peach monster because he absolutely adores Peachy the peach tree and all the peaches that she produces, and the man can eat some peaches. It's kind of funny. Now let's get back to the trellises, because I think it's important to talk about alternatives and why the alternative was not working for me anymore. The animal fencing was getting loose, and it's really hard for me to describe how metal wire can get loose. I think, what we talked about before with the arch sagging, that's just aesthetics. It really wasn't a big deal that it was doing that. But the part that was really bothering me was the fact that the metal wire would stretch and bend, and it would cause slack on the line or on the entire fence. So as things are growing, they're getting heavier and heavier, and they're causing slack in different areas, and it was causing an issue with the plants being able to climb properly. Now, what you could do if a cattle panel is not in the cards for you because of all of the extra things that go into getting it, you could just replace your animal fencing every couple of years. Like mine have been up for like 3 or 4 years. I was using like PEX tubing to hold up the arch. All of that stuff can just be replaced. It comes in a spool. I still have some spooling that I could have used, and I actually have replaced it once or twice, especially on this flat panel. It really stretches bad on the flat panel. It stretched some on the arch, but it really stretches, and you can almost see it if you look really closely at the flat panel trellis here. The animal fencing there has like a weird warped look to it, and that's because it has stretched so badly. But if animal fencing is all that you have the ability to put up, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I would encourage you to go with something that has a higher gauge. My cattle panels are a 4 gauge. I don't think you're going to be able to get that in something rolled up, but if you can, by all means, do that. But I think if you got a 1 or 2 gauge, that is a better option. I don't even know what size mine was, but it was definitely the smallest and most cheapest paneling that I could get. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things that I disliked about it, but there was a lot of things that I liked about it. It got me growing vertically faster without having to tackle all of the logistics that come with getting cattle panel. So if you don't have a truck, and you don't have somebody to help, or you don't have the grinder tool to cut the metal if you need to, and it's not the perfect size, all the things, right? Animal fencing does work well, and it has worked really well for me in the past. Now, I want to talk about the way that you put these panels and these arch trellises in, because I've learned a lot. You see me pulling up two T-posts here because I learned the first season that this was a bad idea. I put two flat panels across from each other in the same bed, and that made it to where I could never get inside this bed. I ended up having to like walk inside the beds, which is a big no-no in any raised bed community. And you've probably seen me do it multiple times on the channel. I was so sick of this. I was like, I'm not supposed to be walking in these beds. I can't access in the bed once the panel's up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take those two posts out, and we're going to stick them in the bed right next to it on the same side, so that we have one solid flat panel that goes across two beds. We still had to cut it because it was just a tiny bit too long. It was a couple of inches too long to go into both beds, but that was no problem. We had the grinder out, so we just went ahead and cut the rest of it off. But thinking about where you're putting your trellises is just as important as installing them. You got to think about that there's going to be plants on the trellis, and that those plants are going to create a wall, and that wall is going to create shade. So you see that I'm putting it on the side next to my fence. If I were to have done the other side, it would have blocked a lot of sun during the winter to all of the beds across the way there. And if I had set it on that side during summer, it would be less of a problem, but there would create some shade on the long bed here, because the way that the sun runs on my property, it runs east to west, with east being, you're looking east right now, west would be behind us. So in summer, it comes like straight up and runs right above this whole long bed the whole summer long. But in winter, it's off to the right on the side of the fence. So if I were to have put these on the other side, it would create a shadow. Now, it is going to create a little bit of a shadow on the plants that are actually in this bed during winter. I'm not that concerned with it because I don't grow a significant amount of vining plants in winter, especially on the flat panel. And the ones that I do grow are typically peas, which filtered light through that is pretty good. And also, the way that the sun sits in the sky, it's not going to shade these out too badly. But you can see just by me talking about it here how much thought needs to go into this. Because if you put them on the wrong side, you're going to be doing what I did, which is yanking them out the next year and moving them because you realize that you've just created this huge shade. Now, that could be a good thing too, right? When we live here in Florida, and summers are rough, you could grow something that actually creates shade for your plants in the afternoon. So think about that too. Maybe you do want to create more shade in your garden. Maybe your garden is a full sun garden, summer and winter, unlike mine where I get lots of shady spots. But maybe you have a full sun garden. Maybe putting a flat panel across the entire west side of your garden and growing really heat-loving vining plants like loofah, Seminole pumpkins, Puerto Rican black beans on those will create a lot of shade for your plants during the summer months. And you could get rid of shade cloth completely and just use these vertical trellises to not only grow food, but also create shade. And then during the winter, when you want more sun in your garden, you just don't grow things on them, or you grow things that are very sparse, like peas or green beans. The same kind of thought process needs to go into effect when you're talking about the arch trellis. There's definitely some things that I would have done differently with my arch trellis. Unfortunately, in my garden setup, I can't really rectify that in my current home. Like if we get another home and another garden, I will definitely rectify that. I think the best way that it can be set up, and this is just my personal opinion based on the way that I've been gardening, is that the cattle panel should go from north to south, with the sun rising over the top of the arch. I hope that makes sense. And I also think it's important that it goes from one bed to another, not within the same bed, because mine currently is in the same bed. So if you do it that way, you get more space. Thanks for hanging out with me today as we built these trellises. It was not easy. It was a little bit of a challenge, but I am so thrilled with the results. I'm going to be growing a ton of stuff. Make sure to comment below. Let me know what you want to see on this arch trellis. I'm thinking baby pumpkins. That sounds so cute. Happy gardening, guys. If you want to learn more about growing vegetables in your backyard garden, make sure to check out my new ebook, Homegrown Florida Gardening Guide, at my website, homegrownfloridagarden.com. Make sure to pick up your copy today, and you will have all the information you need to be a successful gardener.